What if the pain you're carrying isn't just yours? In this powerful episode, we explore how ancestral trauma shapes our present day struggles and how we can release it to reclaim our healing power and finally feel free. Welcome to Happiness on Tap, where we bring you inspiring stories and practical insights for a happier, more fulfilling life. Your go to podcast for uplifting conversations that stir the heart and ignite the spirit. I'm your host, Leann, and today I am joined by Elizabeth Kipp, an incredible woman who is a stress management and historical trauma specialist, addiction recovery and betrayal trauma coach, and an expert in ancestral clearing. Elizabeth healed from more than 4 decades of chronic pain, panic attacks, addiction, and betrayal trauma. Her journey from surviving to thriving is not only inspiring, it's filled with powerful healing tools that she now shares with others. Her work blends trauma-informed practices, yoga, post-betrayal transformation, and ancestral clearing to help people release what isn't theirs and live fully in the now. She is also an international best-selling author of The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. Today, we're diving deep into how ancestral and historical trauma can impact your nervous system, relationships, recovery journey, and sense of self, and what you can do to release it. Let's welcome Elizabeth to the show. Elizabeth, it is so wonderful to have you join us today.
Well, thank you so much, Leann. It's great to be here.
I am so excited. Like I said, this is not something I have a broad knowledge of, so I'm really excited to learn from you and how you use this to help others. So let's get started. Elizabeth, for those new to the concept, what exactly is ancestral clearing and how does it work?
Oh, ancestral clearing is actually an energy healing modality that was originally pioneered by a man named Howard Wills, and then later developed and is taught by John Newton of Health Beyond Belief. So it's a very particular perspective of ancestral healing. We call it clearing. There's lots of work in the ancestral clearing, ancestral burden. This is a very specific way that we do it. And I've been a practitioner of John and Howard. Well, John's the one that does the training. I've been a practitioner since 2014. I first learned about and experienced ancestral clearing in 2013, and I was so impressed with it. I was like, I need to learn how to do this. This is amazing. So what it does is, it's, as I said, it's energy work, but it's actually a spiritual practice where we're asking source energy, God, creator, divine, whatever you call that, which made all of this. We ask it to help us release that which no longer serves us, the unnecessary. We're not asking it to take anything. We're asking it to help us release. So it's not taking anything away from us. It's helping us become kind of, it's helping us unbind. I find it to be, for me, I feel like it helps me unbind my heart. I feel like I felt that, and I'll just, so everybody understands, what am I even talking about, right? I remember when I was 4 years old, sitting in the living room of my parents' house and at home, and feeling the weight. I couldn't see it, I could feel it, feeling the weight in the family. And I was like, what am I doing in this family? And what is this thing? that nobody's talking about. And I didn't have words for it. I had the question and I felt it. And the thing was, is that I noticed it, but I was feeling it. I was feeling it. I could see that they were feeling it too. But of course, this is not the kind of thing we had any discussion about in my family at all. And it wasn't until I met John Newton that I was actually able to put words to it and understand what it was. And what I was experiencing was the weight of the for my parents at this point, they were just coming past World War II. So this would have been in like the mid to late 50s and 60s where I was noticing this. So there'd be like I was in 1959, I was 1958, I was 4. So they were just coming out of the Second World War, and they both had very traumatic experiences personally. And of course, they felt it collectively. So they didn't know how to deal with any of that trauma. And my dad had lived through difficulty during the Great Depression. My mom wasn't so affected, as far as I understand. She wasn't so affected, but my dad was very affected by that, just because the families were different. And you could go on and on and on back in the lineage. So a lot of trauma that went unresolved in the lineage, it ends up getting passed along to the next generation. And science is beginning to measure this. Rachel Yehuda and her team have done work with families of survivors, descendants of survivors of the Holocaust, comparing their stress levels and how they actually handle stress, compare them to families that weren't affected, or didn't go through the Holocaust, different.
Oh, yeah.
They actually handle stress differently. So science has been able to measure this stuff. Spiritual teachers have been telling us for thousands of years, what do they say in the Bible? The sins of the father, right? But spiritual teachers have been telling us for thousands of years that we come into this life with the gifts and the burdens of ancestors. Science tells us, I have a biology background, so I'm always looking at the evolutionary implications of this stuff, of whatever. If there's something that's happening, I'm always looking at what's the evolutionary, what's happening there in terms of evolution. That's just kind of where I go as part of my orientation in the world. And the way I see it, Leann, is that when we're born, the system, meaning life, right? It provides us with the information that we need, that it's best guess at the information that we're going to need in this lifetime. And so, and the other thing that I have noticed is that the system has a lot of wiggle room in it. So there's some noise in the system. So, there's plenty of, it's very robust, but it includes the gifts and the burdens. And the burdens aren't always, it's not always, we don't necessarily have to look at the burdens as a bad thing. It's just that those are life lessons that we have to work on. So that's a very long answer. So we use a prayer practice to, we ask Source as a practitioner. I ask Source on behalf of the client, which in this case would be the group. Everyone listening here will do a group clearing in a minute. I ask Source to help us release that which no longer serves us. So there's free will involved, right? An example of the free will thing is I have a hot button that I've been working on for some time around. I carry righteous indignation around injustice. And so my some of my work has been to like, could we just neutralize, can we bring some neutrality to that button? Because it's it can be pretty fiery. And I'm a stress management person, and I know that when I'm reacting to the world at that level, now I've got a flood of stress hormones in my system, and that's toxic. It's not just toxic to me, it's toxic to the world. So it's important that I do work around that. So I have. Now, what's interesting is, and you look at my lineage, we've got records going back at least 12 generations in my written records on my mother's side. So we can see what happened in history. And there's all kinds of reasons, persecution, injustice and it's just like, well, of course, of course, right. And, and as far as I know, my parents didn't have any way of resolving any of that stuff. I've been blessed to have tools like ancestral clearing and other things that can help me release the charge around that and find a peace in the world. Now, here's the thing. I don't want to be completely free of that. Remember, I talked about there's free will is involved in ancestral clearing. I don't want to release I don't want to lose my charge around injustice in the world. But I don't want it to be so so reactive. I don't want to be so reactive around it that it creates a veil between me and the present reality and me being able to walk effectively and act effectively in the world. So I do ancestor clearing for myself around righteous indignation around injustice, and I hang on to a little bit of it because it helps me. It helps move me, but I try and keep it very balanced. I hope that made sense. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it really does. More information than I ever really understood about it. And you're blessed and lucky to have that lineage and that information so that you can see that ancestral path in your family. I'm adopted, so I have no ancestral path. So sometimes I'm just not sure if the trauma I have in my life is only from my physical, my grandparents, my parents, my aunts and uncles from the family who adopted me, or if there is true ancestral trauma that's been passed down from my biological parents.
There'd be an and there. And because I work with people that are adopted, and there's an and there. You're affected by both, and because the question that you're asking is like, well, is this even mine, and whose is it? And it kind of doesn't. It doesn't really matter whose it is. It matters if we can release it. The key to me of like, well, how do I tell? It's like, is this kind of its little piece of wisdom? If it's hysterical, it's historical. So my hot button around righteous indignation of injustice in the world, that has a root in the past. Because it just doesn't make that much sense that I would be that reactive. But I can get pretty fiery around certain things. And so the things that you're talking about, if it creates a big charge in the body, then it's likely got a root. It's got a root in not just in your past, but in the past in your family, either lineage, either your adoptive or your biological.
Well, thank you for explaining that. So it's definitely not either or, it's both and.
It's and, yeah, it's either and, yeah.
So how do we know if we're carrying pain patterns or trauma that aren't even ours.
Yeah, that's the, like I said, the if we have a reaction to something that's happening in our life, that where we have a very strong reaction, where there's just a lot of um, reactivity in the body, and attitude in the mind, that's we say it's, if it's hysterical, it's historical. So we that gives us a clue right there. That's a kind of a quick and dirty way of looking at it. Another way that is kind of fun. It's kind of common things that I get in my practice is people will say, I'm barely living paycheck to paycheck, and I have no idea why. I work really hard, and like I just don't get it. Well, they could have a scarcity. We often find that there's scarcity in lineage, and who of us doesn't have a vein of scarcity in the lineage? So abundance, or our orientation towards abundance in this world really it can be imprinted by our effects because of the past, right? Um, just think about, for Europeans, for example, just think about the plague years in the late Dark Ages, Middle Ages. We lost 3/4 of Europe, died, was just like perished. So the whole system fell apart. So there was a lot of scarcity there. You could look at indigenous people and look at the effects of disease that hit them, the genocides that hit them. That's a huge scarcity energy there. So it's a lot to the people that are doing work that's effective around abundance nowadays, that are stepping into that work and not as a spiritual bypass, but as an actual actually doing the foundational work around that. They're aware of this stuff, and so there's a lot of peacemaking that's going on between the perpetrators of that and the through the lineage, right? And what's interesting, when we get into this work, we see that the oppressor and the oppressed, they're kind of different to both sides of we've been both. We have both oppressor and oppressed in our lineage, and so it's important that we do that work. We call that inverse burden. So if I have like I've said, I have this button around injustice. Well, the inverse of that would be I was not just, somewhere in my lineage, we were unjust to others. So we always work both sides of the equation in ancestral clearing to make sure that we clear the decks on both sides.
Oh, that is really fascinating. And I see now, like, I loved your example of scarcity versus abundance, because, as a coach and working with people on their mindset and trying to help them work through, a scarcity mindset, and where does this come from? And, what is their goal? And, you take it to the next level deep that a regular coach doesn't go down that ancestral path, and to see, like, where did this truly come from in your lineage. And that's absolutely fascinating. I never would have thought to go there. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, even me thinking about, like, growing up, knowing what my grandparents had, living off the land, raising their own food, and raising 13 children, so understanding that is part of some of my ancestral path, helps really make sense of a lot of things. And I
Beautiful.
kind of learned to look at things in that, not maybe that deep, but not even beyond that, because I don't know any lineage beyond my adopted grandparents. Um, but sometimes that's enough to help me put some of my trauma in perspective.
Mhm, mhm. Sure, sure. Yeah, beautiful.
And we'll
You know,
kind of get to.
when I work with a client, a new client, the first thing I do is assess the state of their nervous system, and if they're activated and they're all, you know, nervous and everything, I'll take them through 3 minutes of left nostril breathing to help, or alternate nostril breathing, just to help regulate the nervous system. And so now we've got a client that's gone from feeling a victim to feeling empowered in 3 minutes, because I didn't do the breathing, they did, they just followed me, right? So now they have a tool. So first thing I was like, address that. Now the next thing is, now that the nervous system can take in information because it's feeling safe and connected, then I take them into an ancestral clearing, because whatever their issue is, it has a root in the past. And so we do the ancestral clearing, and now hopefully we've cleared, through the ancestral clearing, we've cleared a veil or two that are in the way of helping them see whatever it is they came to see me in the first place that's happening in their current life. If that makes sense. So that's kind of the approach that we take in terms of like, well, when do we even bring that in? We bring it in ASAP. Like first thing
Absolutely.
possible.
Yeah. And I think that's, as coaches, as therapists, that is where we should be starting, is first to, get somewhere, like you said, get them to where they're calm and they're open and they feel safe, so that they can talk to us about what's going on, versus, I think what a lot of people think therapy is that you're going in and you're just going to continue to rehash the same story over and over again. And that can be the case. And, I found really quickly that I wasn't interested in therapy for that reason, because I didn't feel like it was helping me at all. I was just sharing my story, which I had already shared my story. I had already shared it out to the universe, had already kind of released a lot of that heaviness, and just returning to my therapist once a week or whatever, and just bringing it back up just was not serving me at all. So I wanted more of the answers, more of a path to understand my trauma and to gain control over it, and that was something I was not getting in therapy. I'm not saying it's not possible, it just wasn't for me.
I love that you said that, and I'll share something else that I've learned. Now, I have as I said, I have a background in science. I was trained as a science researcher. So why is a very important question in my basic programming. Plus, it was like, as a kid, that was a very important piece. But what I have learned in my journey to healing is that why is not always the question. you know, I can do a yoga set, right? That will, just a simple movement with some mantra. And I love it so much because I don't have to think about the why. All I have to do is do the practice, and the stuff clears on its own. I love that so much. And it's also with ancestral clearing, I don't have to know the why and the what's and all the things that happened in the past. I just have to know that I feel that I carry it, and we ask source to help us release it. And boom, and so the why becomes it becomes a question that tends to kind of drop off to the side. Occasionally it's useful, but not so useful as the way I was raised. Why was very important. Why is not so important anymore?
Yeah. And I think I agree with you there. Having the different tools in my toolbox means more to me than understanding what happened and why. I just want to know how to use those tools to release it, to clear it, to, and that's, I think, what I love about the direction I chose with coaching is meeting people where they are and teaching them the tools that they don't already possess, either because they didn't know about it, they weren't open to it, they weren't subjected to it, um, but just providing them the tools. And I share it in a way that I show them, these are the tools that benefited me. Now,
Mhm.
these may not be the tools that are perfect for you, but I'm going to give you a whole bunch of tools, and then we're going to find the ones that work for you.
Mhm.
And so, it's like going into a house, somebody's hired me to fix a room in their house, and I show up with just a hammer. I can only fix so much with one tool. But if I come in with my rolling cart of tools, I have every tool I need to do the job, or at least for the most part. I may have to run to the store and come back, but I'm good. These are tools that I carry with me all the time. They're always there, they're always present, and I know which ones to use when I need them.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's and then the other thing that as coaches that I know that's it's on your toolbox as like a main event is just the ability to listen and be present with the client, right? They they want acknowledgement, they want to be heard. It creates a sense of safety. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that why question is just to address to go back to that for just a minute.
Mhm.
One of the things that I noticed about myself, and it makes sense of what I've already shared about myself, is I have like a hunger. It's almost like an addiction. You could call it an addiction for more information. I want more information. And I know you get this because we've both been on a similar healing path. And what's interesting is that is a story that I'm telling myself to help me stay that I feel like if I have more information, I'll feel safer in the world. The thing that nobody taught me that I had to learn for myself, and thank goodness for my yoga teachers, was how to be with me. And I had a meditation practice back in the day, like a long time ago. But nobody taught me that. I learned it in meditation. And that's not give me more information. That's the opposite, right? So we're working, yes, more information and right. And so here's the and again, right? They're both important. But we got to know when to pull which one out. When is more information necessary, needed here, and when is the being? When is it? We just gotta stay here right now, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that, those are the tools. And that was the same for me. I developed a good meditation practice very early in my healing.
Mm.
And you always hear people, and I myself always said, I can never quiet my mind. My mind is always racing, always going a million miles an hour. My mind is multitasking even when I'm trying not to. But learning and developing that meditation practice really showed me what I had the power to do and how beautiful that silence was, and to just be with myself and not have to focus on anything, just be. And that taught me so much about a lot of things and how I move through life. Whether it's washing dishes, washing floors, vacuuming my house, driving in my car, just being present in what I'm doing is so much more empowering than having, trying to wash dishes and think about 10 things at one time.
Mhm.
I get to just be with the dishes and be grateful for the meal that I shared with my husband, the plates that we have to eat off, the conversation that we shared while we were eating. So that in of itself, you know, that intention, that mindfulness, and the tools that I developed have been so empowering. And just like you, I don't ever want to stop learning. The more information I have, I think uh, the more knowledge I acquire. Even yesterday, today, and tomorrow, I'm doing a 3-day workshop around everything else I'm doing because of the information that I'm obtaining and understanding to help understand trauma more, not only for myself, but for the people I help. So, you know, for me, free time is a beautiful blessing because I can use it to either be present with myself, or I can use it to obtain information, or I can share a beautiful conversation with someone like you and get to share that information with more people. So, you know, it's how you choose to roll through life with intention.
Well, that's the intention. I love you just laid that out so beautifully. So there's the energies are different. There's the being and the walking through the world with a mindful state, which is a specific energy. You feel it in the body. And then there's the other part was like, I need more energy. I need more, I need more information. I need more information that I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to get there, right? Which I have like, I'm still working on that. It's just the way I was raised. It's the way our culture operates. You know what the problem with, I need more information. I got to get this thing. I'm not here. I've got probably 1.5 feet in the future and a half a foot in the present. So I'm missing all the information that's here in the present moment, and my energy is not aligned. And it's in this, I want state. So it's in this addictive, it's also very stressful, by the way, right? So I just feel like it's helpful to understand, like, how am I feeling right now? Because my mind isn't always truthful. Like my thoughts are not always truthful, but my energies always will tell me what's up, right? Am I contracting? Am I expanding? Am I calm? Am I, trying to get there? What's happening there with the energy? It's always very helpful. Yeah.
I want to talk more on the ancestral clearing side. Um, and this is one definitely for me. What role does forgiveness, and especially self forgiveness, play in clearing ancestral wounds?
Oh, well, we use the word forgive to mean offering up that which no longer serves us, and we're offering it up to creator, source, divine, whatever you call that, which all made all of this. So it's an offering up. And in terms of self-forgiveness, if I have done something that I can't, and I did, I actually have done this work for myself. If I have an event in my life where I acted a certain way and I'm like, I can't ever forgive myself for that. Now, what is that? I'm holding on for dear life. The energy of that is contractive. In fact, in my case, it was so contractive it created a knot. And a lot of what I don't really like this word stuck energy, but it's kind of, people understand what it is. I don't believe any of us are actually stuck, because we're a vibrational, we're all vibrational energy. So that stuck thing is actually a dense energy field. So we're just in a dense energy field at the moment. We're not really stuck. So that we're always moving, right? We're always moving at some rate. So that gives me a certain amount of freedom around the stuck. But the self-forgiveness, I can't forgive myself around this. Now I've taken a position. I've decided I'm right. I've become rigid, and I've closed my mind to other possibilities. So this is beautiful for ancestral clearing, because you know what? That has a huge charge. So if it's hysterical, it's historical. So what else happened? So clearly something else happened in the lineage, something else beyond my pen, not just what I did, but if it's got a charge like at that level, then it's got a root in the past. So, and I don't know what it was necessarily, but it doesn't matter. Ancestral clearing can help us release that which no longer serves us. Like I said, it no longer serves us, right? If we're ready to release it, we would have released it by now if we could have, but we just haven't been able to. That's why we bring in source to help us release, because we're bringing in the boss, we're bringing in the energy, and my experience of this work, and I'm talking as a scientist as well. My experience of this work is that when we ask source for help, we get it. Now, I have to be sincere in my ask, but we get the help. So if the issue is self-forgiveness, Ancestral Clearing's excellent at that. If the issue is just offering up, just, I want to release something that I'm carrying from the family, from the lineage, or from my past, Ancestral Clearing is very good for that too. So I hope that answered the question.
It does actually. From my own life and understanding, that was very helpful. I have been able to forgive some things, and that was a struggle for me because I think growing up, the word forgiveness was so much more around religious connotation, and it wasn't source, but it was more, I don't know. It was just, that was something that I had a hard limit on. Like, there are things that have happened in my life that I swore I could never forgive until I learned the difference between forgiving someone else for what they did and self-forgiveness. But I also know that as far as self-forgiveness, there is something very specific that I have been holding on to very, very tightly. And it's really going to lead into my next question. And so knowing that there is a possibility for me to be able to ask source to help me release this thing that I have been holding on to for a while, is a very positive thing for me to know that's available for me. So my next question will kind of go to this, where my struggle is with self-forgiveness. How does betrayal trauma intersect with ancestral trauma? And what does that healing process look like? I carry a lifetime of betrayal trauma.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a woman named Dr. Debbie Silber, Silber, who has a whole platform that's dedicated just to helping people heal from betrayal trauma. It's the only one like it of its kind. It's called the PBT Institute, or PBT standing for Post Betrayal Transformation Institute. She did a PhD, and she's got over 100,000 people that she's got data on at this point. She did a PhD on betrayal trauma and identified 5 different distinct stages that people go through when they need the healing stages they need to go through in order to heal from betrayal trauma. A little bit different from regular trauma, because betrayal trauma tends to actually shake our whole worldview. So we have to actually shift our perspective on and the healing part is a larger shift than like if I just broke my back. I actually did break my back at one point, which is a trauma in itself. But what's interesting is I've had that kind of trauma, and then I've had betrayal trauma events, and how different they are, and the different work that I've had to do. So now what I find interesting is again, when I experienced betrayal trauma, I had this huge, charge to it. I didn't know it at the time. I mean, it was, I mean, it blindsides us. It just on its own, forget the past, just in the present. It's like, I never expected I would get that from that end, and just like somebody, we're just somebody we trusted, just all of a sudden, like, we're not safe anymore. What I found in my own family, when I went back, remember I said 12 generations, there's a whole pattern of betrayal trauma in the lineage. And I was like, holy cow, right? No wonder this has been, not only am I a betrayal trauma recovery coach, but the work that I've had to do to work with my own, to clear the charge out of my body, right? It's a memory. I have the memory of it, but the charge is what is the thing that's so toxic, right? So it was helpful for me to have the ancestral clearing component of it, because it helped clear the stuff that I came in with. And now that I've got that done, now I can work with the stuff that happened in my lifetime.
So would that be considered like one of the stages? Or
No,
is it like a pre-stage?
she doesn't include ancestral clearing. I do that for the clients on that platform. She doesn't really include that, but she does include forgiveness in stage 4. Forgiveness is part of stage 4, and we would include that piece in it. That's where I come in with the ancestral component. I bring it right in there, because now we're ready to hear it. Like in the first stage where we're shocked, and the second stage where we're like just trying to survive, and the third stage we're just trying to get our sea legs as we're surviving. Fourth stage, now we're beginning to, like, we've got we realize we've got a new world view happening here. Now we're ready to actually hear the thing about, before that we're not ready to hear, don't talk to me about forgiveness. Right.
Exactly. No, thank you for explaining that, because for the longest time I didn't even, that was like a whole new word that really made me understand what I had as lifetime trauma, because I would look at it as like abandonment, and I gave it other names.
Mm-hmm.
But when I really started doing the research, because it was like a fluke that I heard the word betrayal trauma, and I was like, huh, well, let me learn more about this. And then the more I learned about it, the more I was like, oh my goodness, this is it. This really explains a lifetime of trauma that I had been going through in just one word. I mean, it was more distinct and identifying.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, it's like that. If you want to buy a new car and you want a red one, and then you see 10,000 red ones, it has become that for me in my life. I hear the word betrayal trauma in more things and in more people that I talk to, which that helps me, because then I'm not feeling alone in my trauma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's an
I
important
may
thing to
feel
keep
alone
in
in what
mind.
happened to me, thinking, oh my goodness, no one could ever understand, because I don't understand. Like you said, it's that trauma that knocks the wind out of you, that you don't see coming, that you could have never imagined in a lifetime that a family member would do something like that to you. But when you have other people who you're working with, who you're helping, or just who you're sharing a conversation around that trauma, that inclusivity in what we're all experiencing is part of the healing.
Sure. Well, you put your finger on it again. Really, trauma is a wound where we become separate from ourselves. It's a wound of disconnection. So we become, you already brought the isolation piece in. I feel so isolated, and then you're saying, and now I'm not, because everybody's talking about it. right? That's, and that's very healing, right? That's part of healing from trauma, is where we are isolated, we have trauma in unsafe relationship, we heal in safe relationship. Now, the safe relationship can be with other people, like with a coach or with a support group, or right, having a larger conversation around trauma, betrayal trauma, for instance. It can be um, with I can now I can connect with my authentic self and get my authentic voice back. I can actually hear it and speak it. That's relationship, and it can be relationship with source. So, but it has to be a safe relation. We have to heal in safe relationship. It's got to be a safe relationship of some kind, right? It just depends on what the relationship looks like, but it's got to be a safe one. It's kind of interesting. And I'm not one, I hear a law like that come down, like, in the field, generally, like it could be a spiritual law or science or whatever. And the first thing I do, when doesn't it apply? Like, that's the first thing I do. It's like, I try to figure out, when does that not apply? And I haven't been able to find anything other than unsafe relationship, trauma, safe relationship, healing from trauma. Those actually, that seems like they fit. I haven't been able to come against it. When doesn't it apply? Never. Always applies.
Yeah, I was very blessed to be in a safe relationship when I was in the thick of my trauma. I had never had that safe relationship enough that I could heal and, take that journey. Because before it was just, that, ignore it, stuff it down, or deny it, that I had lived for a lifetime, because I had never had that safe relationship where I could speak about it, uh, be listened to, feel safe, and be able to do the work all at the same time. So I was very blessed in my trauma recovery.
Yeah, beautiful blessing.
Um, and you have been in a very long term recovery. How does ancestral and historical trauma influence addiction and recovery paths?
Well, again, we have reactions to things. An addiction, just for the sake of the audience, addiction is an effect of unresolved trauma. It's a strategy that we use in order to deal with this trauma that we haven't resolved yet. And it's an unhealthy strategy, but it's one that we use. So just kind of understanding, it's not like a moral failing. It's a way we find safety in the world,
Mm-hmm.
when that's the only option that we are aware that we can find, right? The ancestral component, they haven't found a gene for addiction, so just understanding that hasn't been located. But we do have tendencies, predispositions. The way that the information that we came in with is kind of a setup for, can be a setup for addiction in a lifetime. Like, I was born to a mother who drank alcohol and smoked cigarettes while she was pregnant with me. And so when she gave birth to me, I had to go through alcohol withdrawal. And then I couldn't, I wasn't, she didn't breastfeed because it just wasn't done at the time for whatever reason. And so they gave me formula, which had a ton of sugar in it. So I kind of started out with sugar as my gateway drug. And so that, that's not necessarily behavior in my lineage. That's a tendency in the human bio, in the mammalian brain around sugar. You look at a bear going after a honeybee hive, and how intense they are at going after that honey when they're getting stung, right? What is that? That's the brain on sugar. That's what happens, right? So it's not just humans, it's the mammal. The mammalian brain is, we're kind of wired around sugar in a certain way, and we just have a whole slew of it on the in our landscape right now, and it's creating chaos. It's an example of an addiction. I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, it really did. It gave me a lot to think about. When you don't, I mean, I understand, babies born addicted from the choices of the mother. And then there's, lack of knowledge, lack of education, lack of resources, all of that continues to provide that path where we are then choosing things to to calm our thoughts, our needs, or so yeah, that actually really made a lot of sense as far as addiction and recovery paths is. I guess the more you know, I think that's really the thing that I'm really taking from our conversation, which is very powerful to me, because that's one of my favorite things to say is the more you know. It goes back to that want for education, want for knowledge. But at the same time, I don't, if I attend a workshop, I don't just attend and watch what other people are saying. I'm, feverishly taking notes, and then I'm figuring out how to put those things into action in my life, learning new somatic modalities. Like you said, the breathing to immediately calm the nervous system. There's just so many things that we can learn and put into place and then teach others. So
would we have a chance? Is there time now for us to possibly just go through a group clearing? So we can
absolutely, that was
share
one of
that
my next
modality with,
things. Yes, if you would please.
that would be great. It gives you another idea of another tool in your toolbox, another approach that you can use to clear, just to clear the decks, so that you've got a clear vision on what your purpose is, and going forward, right? So this is everyone listening to this, the live version of this and the replay are just as powerful, because we're operating through the present moment. For everyone listening to this, if you could just sit still. If you're driving in a car, listen to the replay. Listen to it later. But everyone else, it's just sitting quietly, noticing what sensations you feel in your body. Like I feel my sitting bones on the chair and my feet on the floor, and I could feel a little bit on my left forearm. I feel a little bit of tingling there, a little bit around the eyes. And if I had to give all that sensation a level of intensity from 0 to 10, I would give it probably about a 3.5, just so you have an idea of kind of where you are and where you're feeling things. And just sit quietly, breathe as normally as you can, and allow those sensations, and let these words pass over you. Remembering that we use the word forgive to mean offer up that which no longer serves us, and we offer it up to whatever you call that which created all of creation. O divine spirit, creator of all that is, all that you are, thank you for the many bountiful blessings you bestowed upon us and our lineages. We come to you knowing you are always here with us in all your great and vast nature. We ask humbly and gratefully for us and all our relationships, and all of our ancestors and all of their relationships that are all space, time, dimension, realms, lifetimes, and incarnations. For all inherited energies passed down to us that were residue of the wounds we didn't create, but were born into. For all the stories we created because of them. For all the misunderstanding, blame, and suffering that ensued in the lineage as a result. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves. Please and thank you. For all the times any of us were abandoned, neglected, or otherwise betrayed by parents, caregivers, partners, or the community, in love, in friendship, or leadership across the family line. For letdown that we felt and all the deep mistrust of life and love that followed. For not feeling safe to receive support. For any fears of being abandoned if we turn to joy, visibility, or our truth. Please help us all to forgive and release one another and forgive and release ourselves, please, and thank you. For everyone involved directly or indirectly, for all of it, please and thank you. For all addiction and escapism patterns any of us fell into, whether alcoholism, drug abuse, emotional eating, gambling, control, achievement, codependency, or any other pattern that kept us from looking within ourselves for the answer to our wholeness. For the legacy of numbing our pain as a survival strategy and how it kept us from living life fully and allowing ourselves to feel you, Creator, flowing through us. And for all the limiting beliefs, judgments, and conclusions that we had or made that kept us playing small, not able to reach our full potential in life. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves. Please and thank you. For all the experiences we had of injustice, persecution, systemic oppression, or other betrayals of authority figures, teachers, coaches, doctors and nurses, lawyers and judges, spiritual leaders, and anyone else we look to for leadership. For the times we felt anger and profound letdown at you, Creator, and for how that weighed on us and our lives. And for any spiritual grief we felt that made trust and surrender seem impossible. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves for once and for all, please and thank you. For any survivor's guilt, for any shame we carried while others in the family or the community suffered, for any inherited guilt from past hurts or harms done, and for any times we were unable to stop harm from happening. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For all sexual hurts and wrongs, and any time they were minimized or went unspoken. For all secrets within the family and how in such darkness those secrets festered into wounds. For any shame carried in the family around our innate animal nature, and for any confusion or conflict about any of our relationships to sensuality, boundaries, or expression. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For all conflicting DNA, any energetic tug of war in the lineage, opposing values, unresolved family feuds or vendettas, or mixed ancestral allegiances. For any negative residue left from the genetic imprints of both the oppressed and the oppressor. And for any felt sense of identity confusion or not knowing where we belong. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For how any of these wounds kept us playing small in life, for any fear of being seen or heard, or stepping into a position of leadership, for the times we felt we had to suffer in order to earn love or even have a sense of belonging, for any time we felt prey to subconscious sabotage around success, intimacy, or abundance, for any cycle of perfectionism or any imbalance between giving and receiving. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. Please help us step into our power and find freedom from the burdens of the lineage. Please help us release those patterns and turn back to realizing our inherent wholeness that can never be diminished. Please help us to reclaim that space within us where our true self was, is, and always will be. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. And just taking a nice big breath in and let it out and notice how that feels in the body.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
You covered layers I couldn't even think about. That was wonderful. That was really, really amazing. I appreciate you so much for sharing that with our listeners so that they can experience the work that you do, and what you're able to do to help people. Where can people find you? And if you could just talk a little bit about the services that you offer.
Sure. Thanks, Leann. You can find me in my website, which is my name, Elizabeth with a hyphen, Kipp.com. You got to put the hyphen in there or you won't find me. All my services are up there. There's a lot of free resources. And all my social media is there. I offer group ancestral clearing, private singular ancestral clearing. I do group I'm getting ready to do a group coaching around clearing the toxic negative thinking habit that we can get into. I'm working on. I'll probably release that in the fall. I have a program on a course on called the Foundations of Trauma Recovery, which is an 18 video course, which has a lot of somatic stuff to help us move that energy. So I do ancestor clearing, I do stress management, and I'm an addiction recovery coach. So you can connect with me if you have any needs around there. And if I can't help you, I probably know somebody who can.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your deep wisdom, your compassion, and your lived experience with us. Your story is a reminder that healing is possible even after decades of suffering, and that we don't have to carry what doesn't belong to us. To all of you listening, if you have ever felt weighted down by something you couldn't name, or if you're on your own recovery or healing journey, may this episode be a gentle invitation to go deeper, release inherited burdens, and remember that you are worthy of peace. Be sure to check the show notes for links to Elizabeth's book, her ancestral clearing sessions, and other powerful healing resources. And until next time, keep your happiness on tap. Thank you again so much, Elizabeth.